Babolat, you've finally done it. You've done something that absolutely no consumer has asked for by rebranding all of your copolyesters faster than some NFL franchises branding their names differently just because in 2020, everybody and their mother was absolutely woke. Am I right, Washington football team? A wildly popular copoly released in 2008, the Babolat Pro Hurricane Tour was rebranded to be named the Babolat RPM Hurricane in early 2020, probably because the Babolat RPM Blast was so wildly successful. Remember, corporations will only change if one of two things happen. One, if they change something, they're gonna make a lot of money. Two, if they don't change that thing, they're gonna lose a lot of money. Am I right, Washington football team? Every single polyester string now has the letters RPM inside of it. But the funny part is, their copolys don't even supply that much spin potential compared to the other strings I've reviewed on this channel. It's kind of like that 40-year-old overweight, wrinkled mom that smells like cigarettes at Target, and she's wearing sweatpants that has the letters that spell juicy written on the back. By the way, hit subscribe if you want to get notified on weekly tennis string reviews and other tennis original content. At this point, you might as well have racket lines like the Babolat RPM Drive or the Babolat RPM Arrow, and hell, why not? The Babolat RPM Strike while we're at it. In fact, let's just cut the bullshit and let's go straight to Rafael Nadal. He should change his name instead of being Rafael Nadal Pereira to Rafael Pereira de Manicure. And just let everybody know that Nadal is nothing but a marketing tool for companies such as Babolat. Marketing aside, let's see how the Babolat RPM Hurricane actually performs on court. Here's its review. A copolyester that is claimed to be 8-sided, but it definitely feels round. And coming in at about $175 per reel and about $12 per packet. This string isn't exactly expensive, but it's definitely not cheap. Luckily for us, it's one of the cheaper ones coming from the Babolat line of copolyesters I've reviewed on this channel so far. From the baseline, it's most definitely a lower powered string, and that should be expected. The spin potential for topspin was good, although I never felt like it actually bit the ball like some of the shaped copolys I've reviewed so far. It has pretty good spin potential. I would argue more spin potential than the RPM Blast. However, the underspin was kind of a weird story because it's okay. It's a tough one. Although it does feel soft with the slice, there were times where it sails long and doesn't dip into the court after it crosses the net. But again, there were actually other times where upon the soft buttery impact, especially on the backhand, not only did it just barely cut over the net tape, which is a good thing for a slice, but it just absolutely died as soon as it bounced on the other side of the tennis court, which is fantastic. It's, I would say, inconsistent for the backhand slice and the forehand slice as well. Not necessarily a bad thing, just coming from a brand name like Babolat, I expected a little bit more consistency for what I would deem a pretty important shot from tennis as a defensive baseliner. The feeling was kind of dead, kind of like me inside in all of 2020. I cannot wait for this year to be over. And the comfort was not there. It wasn't a comfortable string, not by a long shot, but it was not jarring enough to exacerbate any current arm or elbow problems from my point of view. If you miss hit on the ground stroke, trust me, you're going to know.
By how much?
For the serves and overhead, the first serves were pretty good. I felt like I was able to hit out on my first flat serves with a good amount of confidence, whether it's up the tee or a little bit out wide. The second serves, the spin serves, however, were a little bit of a different story. Although this gave a surprising amount of spin potential and actual bite behind my slice and kick serves, the power dropped immensely. But I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing as long as you're expecting it, because in the singles court, when I was playtesting this string with serves, I was actually acing my opponent on both the deuce and ad side because of the massive spin potential coming from, let's say, a round copolyester, but the lack of power left it short angled and kicking out wide into the other court and acing my opponent unexpectedly. Not necessarily a bad thing, it was just surprising and something that you guys should be on the lookout for. For the volleys and touch shots, it had a good amount on the volley as long as you hit the sweet spot, typical of any copolyester that you're going to be reviewing under the sun. However, it wasn't super comfortable, but the finesse shots were actually there. I felt pretty confident that it wasn't going to hit the net tape or the net in general when I was going for drop volleys and more finesse angled shots up at the net. So overall for volleys, this is actually a pretty damn good string. As for tension maintenance, after about 5 hours of straight hitting and playtesting with this tennis string and originally strung at 55 pounds, for some reason it is now at 57 pounds. And although that's kind of surprising for stiffer copolyesters I've reviewed on this channel, like the RPM Rough, it's actually somewhat expected. I wouldn't say it's a good thing, but it's pretty common for stiffer copolyesters on this channel. Although this channel can be nicknamed Hate on Babolat and Hate on Luxilon and not a damn thing would change, I do have to give Babolat credit when credit is due. This is a pretty decent string that is consumer friendly. This is the predecessor of the RPM Blast, and it was a damn good standalone string back in the early 2010s. The stiff feeling and the good spin potential and the overall playability can attest to it 12 years later. I could fully recommend this string to people that want a stiffer version of the Babolat RPM Blast. And the good news is, it's significantly cheaper, which is something we all can agree on is a good thing as consumers. I just wish Babolat can make more strings like this so they are not completely on my shit list. This is tested with my Yonex E-Zone 98 2020 version. And hit like and subscribe for more weekly tennis string reviews and more original tennis content such as this. And as always, happy hitting.